Welcome back to Truth Moment. Welcome back to Truth Moment. I'm your host, Tiara Pritchett. In this next episode of Truth Moment, typically I will do an outline. So I'll spend about a week or so collecting information about my guest and doing my research or my homework. Well, in this episode, there was no need because there's something that's so serious in our country that is actually becoming an epidemic, but people don't talk about it. So it's so detrimental to the very presence of life, but yet it's so hush-hush. So my next guest, Mr. Dennis Gillen, I don't want to say is the ambassador because he's not taking it on to say that he has all of the answers or that his experience is the only one that counts. But he is doing something to make sure that the numbers do decrease by awareness. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dennis. Welcome to Truth Moment.
Tiara, thank you for having me, and
No
thank
problem.
you for taking on such a tough subject, suicide.
It is. It really is. There aren't a lot of people who want to talk about it. And so, please.
I don't want to talk about it, but here we are.
Here we are. Your story is very unique, and it's unlike any other that I've heard. So when I first heard about you, I said I absolutely wanted to get to know this individual and have my guests come to know him the way that I do. So Dennis, please tell me your story.
Sure. I had a fairly typical upbringing until I was a junior in college, and I had the phone ring. And like many of the people watching, and probably yourself, the phone rings and your life changes.
Yeah.
And I got the call from home. I was 8 hours away at West Virginia University in my junior year. It was fall. It was October 26th. And there was my sister on the phone saying, "You have to come home." And you can hear my voice already starting to crack. Because even when I go back there, I go back in a second. I can see that day like it was yesterday. And I'm 8 hours from home. It's a Wednesday. I had 2 tests on the Thursday. And I'm saying to my sister, "I don't need to come home." She goes, "You need to come home. Mark died."
Wow.
My older brother, Mark. And initially they didn't know what to tell me. So they told me he died in a car accident. He died in a car, but it was no accident. The car never left the driveway.
Wow.
It's sad, very sad. So that's, again, a whirlwind moment. Phone rang and my life just changed. The trajectory I was on was altered. And I didn't take it too well.
Yeah.
And I did what everyone listening should not do. And watching is I started drinking heavily. Proud Irish Catholic, we have a reputation to uphold. I was already drinking a little bit before then. I ramped it up after Mark died. And unfortunately, I wasn't the only one responding that way. And 11 years later, and this is where the story gets a little unique, 11 years later, the phone rang again, and I'm one of 5 kids, and Matthew was my youngest brother, and I got a call that Matthew died. So
Wow.
in 83 to 94, I lost 2 brothers to suicide.
Wow.
And that's, as sad as it is, it's taken me so long to get to this point to say it without crying. And I've cried a river for those guys. I've absolutely cried a river for those guys, but it's still sad to this day. And you heard it in my voice. It changed.
How old were your brothers?
Mark in 83 he was born in 62, he was just 21. And then Matthew was born in 70, so in 94 he was just 23.
Wow.
So he really just started to get going, 21, 23.
How did your baby brother pass, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't like to talk about methods per se.
Okay.
There's, my older brother obviously in the car, he rigged it up so he wouldn't get out of the car. And then my younger brother, firearms, you can guess right now how he died. Firearms account for about 50% of all completed suicides. So that statistic holds true in my family.
Okay. So with the first brother's passing, you took to drinking. Now, prior to your baby brother passing, had you already pulled away from drinking, or were you still drinking heavily?
No, I was still going at it pretty hard. And
Okay.
it's not the preferred method for dealing with any adversity. In fact, I would strongly recommend against it. It was it was a coping mechanism, I thought,
Yeah.
but we weren't coping too well, and thus we lost Matthew. And I'll be honest with you, because the show's called Truth Moment.
Yes,
Here's my
please.
moment of truth. I got hammered the night before Matthew's funeral, and I haven't touched this stuff since.
Wow.
I went to the funeral hungover. I cried like a baby the whole time. I was slobbering. I was a mess. And I'm crazy. I'm not stupid. At that point, I was so depressed about what happened to Matthew that I realized alcohol is a depressant, and I really should take a time out from it. And that time out will be 22 years
Wow.
this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a pretty long time out.
Did you seek therapy or counseling during this time?
Great question, because after Mark died, I didn't seek therapy, and it was available to me. And a lot of students who watch the show, they have it available, and it's available through a lot of employers now, free sessions. And I'm such a big fan of therapy now that I'd pay for it if I had to, and I have. So after Matthew died, I went and saw a competent counselor. So I traded in the incompetent bartender for a competent counselor, and that made all the difference. That sped up my recovery, and I'm a big fan of counseling. And when I first walked into the counselor, I was more or less like looking over my shoulder to see if anyone was watching me go in this building. Now I don't care. I've got one here on retainer in Columbia, and when things get a little tough, I go, and I don't care who sees me going in the building. I don't care who sees me coming out. I know I need it, and I'm a big fan of it.
Wow. Was it difficult for you to get to that place where you went reluctantly, but you still went? And now you're at the place where I don't care who sees me. If I need help with a situation that I'm not dealing with effectively myself, I'm going to allow someone who can help me deal with it. Was that difficult for you to get to from your I don't want anyone to see me, so I got my big hat and my sunglasses on.
Funny nose and sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very difficult. In fact, the first session I went to, I remember this guy asked me the question. It was through an employee assistance program. I had 8 free sessions, and this guy goes, "Why are you here?"
Yeah.
I remember he didn't really know my story. It was a double suicide, and I just blurted it out, and I just started crying. I think I spent the entire hour just crying in this guy's office, and it just needed to come out.
Yeah.
If you swallow your problems, your stomach keeps score, and if you don't get it out in a proper fashion, it'll come out in improper ways.
Absolutely.
Like you'll lash out at loved ones, you'll behave, you'll drink heavily. It needed to come out, so it was like a catharsis. I think I verbally vomited on this guy, and it was. I equate it when I do these talks. I equate it to going to get a physical at the doctor. You don't want to go, but you feel so much better when you get in the car. So that's what I tell people. I don't want to go to counseling, but I know I need it now, and I go. Again, not caring who sees me, but I know I'm better off on the way home.
Very true. Very, very well spoken. And again, ladies and gentlemen, like we stated earlier, he's not saying that his way is the way, and he's not advocating drinking alcohol in order to fix your problems. But this is one man who has taken on this to say that if one person listens to me when I do my talks, then I know that I've made a difference. He and I have spoken, and you've told me that if one person hears you in the audience and says, I'm not going to think that life is over because of what's happening to me, then you feel like you've made a difference.
Absolutely. If I chase one person into a counselor's office,
Yeah.
we're on the right path.
So how did you, with losing both of your brothers, how did you take on this mission, or how did this mission take on you? Because really, that's what has happened.
Very reluctantly. I'm a guy, and guys, we go into our man cave. So for a while, I thought I was dealing with it in my own personal manner. I was glad I got the therapy. When I was doing the therapy, I lived in Pennsylvania, and I moved to Chicago, and I kept all my secrets in Pennsylvania. I didn't tell anybody about my brothers. People would ask me, how many kids in your family, Dennis? I would say 3. I would tell them about myself and my 2 sisters. I wouldn't even bring up my brothers. And then one day I was at church, and I went to go get a free donut. They had this adult education, and I didn't know what the topic was, but I know I was starved, and I wanted the donut.
Okay.
So I went into the classroom to get the donuts, and I sat down. I said, all right, I'll listen to the lecture, whatever it is. And lo and behold, guess what the topic was? Suicide prevention. The people from Suicide Prevention Services of Batavia, Illinois, where I lived at the time, were putting on a program, and they were looking for people to work on the hotline. No one in this room knew my story, and I could not leave because if I got up and left, I would have walked right in front of the presenter, which isn't cool.
No, absolutely
So
not.
I had to stay there and listen. I'm like, so on the way out, I didn't tell anyone. I just reached down and grabbed this woman's card. And her name was Stephanie Weber. She's the executive director at Suicide Prevention Services, SPS of Batavia, Illinois. And that led me to volunteer to work on the hotline, the 1-800-273-TALK line.
Yeah.
And I went through intensive training for that. And what I liked about it was I could do it anonymously. I left every Thursday night. My kids were little. Now they're big, but they were little at the time. Thursday night at 7:30, I went to this building. I did my shift on the phone, and somewhere around 12:30, I would come home in the morning. So nobody knew. Not even my neighbors knew. They just knew I was home and I was gone. Maybe they thought I was going out for milk. And 4 hours later, I came back. So it was a very rewarding experience. I was glad for my time on the phone. That's how I could help without being outed, in a sense. I could still keep my secret, but help others.
Okay. And that actually brings me to my next question. So you're doing better. You're healing from the situation, but yet you still feel the need to work with a hotline. Why?
You get to a point, and many of the folks watch this will happen to someone. It's called redemptive help. You've gone through the healing process to a point where you say, you know what, that was horrible.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. You know, to walk behind the caskets of 2 brothers from suicide was horrible. And you sit there like, wow, I have to do something so no one else feels that. And that's where the nudge comes. And you get to the point they call it redemptive help. This was bad. How do I prevent someone else from going through this? And that's kind of the mission of sorts. How do I prevent that one person from having to feel, that one family from having to go through what we went through?
Okay, and Truth Moment audience is really interesting. Dennis has children. So your children, you have 2 boys, right?
Boys, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about your perspective on you losing 2 boys and now having 2 boys.
It's funny how the universe works in that manner. I've been very blessed to have these 2 boys, and it was interesting because I had to wait to a certain time where they're of age to tell them about the 2 uncles they don't have.
Yeah.
And again, that you can hear my voice again. That makes me incredibly sad that my 2 boys would never, get a chance to interact with Matt and Mark. They died long before we had children, and it's extremely sad that I had to wait a while. They know about them. They've helped me do some of the stuff I do.
That's great.
They helped me at the walks. They've been, to the cemetery. It was tough, but it also helped me and the boys have some conversations like, guys, this is not an option.
Right.
You're talking to a man that's been through this. Your life can be as bad as it is. I'm always going to love you. And no matter what you do, I'll take you back.
Yeah.
So please don't think of that as an option. So we've had some very frank discussions.
And you've mentioned, as men, you all like to retreat to your man cave when things are bothering you or things are going on. So at what point did losing your brothers have an effect on Dennis as far as being able to express himself to his wife or his boys? Your emotions. Do you think that you got better because of what you went through, or do you think times it made it worse?
I think I got better because of what I went through. There were times it wasn't that good, and my confidence took a hit. When someone dies by suicide, you feel like they reject the environment, and if you're a family member, you're a big part of the environment, and you take it personally.
Thank you for speaking to that.
Oh,
Thank you.
Man, if my brother swerved to avoid a deer and hit a tree, you'd say, wow, that's just the way it is. But they died by their own hand, and it hurt.
Yeah.
There's some guilt that comes with that. Like, wow, what if, could have, should have. I remember thinking I owed Matthew a phone call. I got to call Matt. And I never got to make that phone call. The whole process has made me more sensitive, and I think sobering up has helped me immensely. I feel the high highs, I feel the low lows. It's made me a more compassionate person. You could ask my wife, I could be a jerk at times and callous, but I do feel everything now. And you want to feel everything. You want to feel the intense joy, and you want to feel the intense sorrow. The sorrow is there so you recognize the joy.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? If everything was joyful, you wouldn't know the difference. It wouldn't be any special. But you got to go through the valleys to get to the mountaintops, and that's where I'm coming from.
Did your family losing two boys make you feel as though you had to overcompensate?
There was a time, not overcompensate. I'm sure I don't want to speak for anyone in my family, but I'm sure they look at me sometimes and they might see the other boys in me. Matt and I looked a lot alike. Maybe Mark and I acted a lot alike. So sometimes they're looking at me. I'm like, "Are you guys okay?" What I felt was really weird was when Matt died. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm the last Gillen boy." The name Gillen on my side of the family stops with me. And at the time, we didn't have any children. And we were having some difficulty. And then lo and behold, we got pregnant, and I didn't care what baby came out, but it was a boy.
Yeah.
And I got to name my oldest son after my father, which is kind of cool. So the name went on. So I felt an incredible burden in a weird way, and I shouldn't feel it. It wasn't my choosing, but I just felt like, you know what, you're it. You're the last boy. The girls have different last names.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And Truth Moment audience, this is such a remarkable talk. I don't want to stop this flow, but we do have to take a short break. So, yes, we'll be right back. Stay tuned because he has even more information to talk to us about. And we want to talk to him about what he has going on now. So, after this commercial break, we'll be joining you where Dennis can continue on expressing himself about suicide and ways we can go about preventing it and signs that we need to look out for.
Truth Moment audience, great resource, the National Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-TALK. You can use it if you're in crisis yourself or if you know someone in crisis and you need some tips. 1-800-273-TALK, that's 8255 if you need to spell it out numerically. Great resource, take advantage of it.
Welcome back. So one thing that I wanted to ask you, Dennis, I actually stumbled across you on your YouTube channel doing some of your talks. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now to advocate on behalf of saving lives.
Sure. I was very fortunate and got asked to speak about my experience first at one of the Out of the Darkness walks put on by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which was very nice. Raised some money. They said, "Can you do a 5-minute talk?" What I didn't realize was right before I went on the talk, right before I went on, they were passing around a microphone and everyone was saying the name of the person they lost.
Wow.
And public speaking is tough as it is, and I have to go on right after this. And I was doing okay, but one little kid got me. And this brings me to tears all the time. They were passing around the microphone, and there were people saying names like Michael Johnson, Bill Matthews, whatever. And this kid grabs the microphone and says, "My daddy." And I just melt. And somebody took a picture, and my head was down right before I went on. And I think my wife took a picture. I was praying as hard as I could, like, please get me through this next 5 minutes. I had to talk for 5 minutes. And I got through it. And then someone said afterwards, "You need to do more of that." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, you hit a nerve there. You need to do more of it. So I started doing more talking. Anytime a chance came up, I'd take it. Now, there was a time I thought I was ready, and I went to USC to talk to the RAs, and I wasn't ready. I cried the whole time. So again, going back to that process, you have to get to a point of that redemptive help. Finally, I got to a point where they brought me down to the College of Charleston.
Okay.
And only cried half the time.
Progress,
50%, we'll take it. No, and again, I hit a nerve, and then I went to Shaw Air Force Base, and they said, "You got to do 6 sessions." And each session was a rep. And halfway through one of the sessions, I went on sort of a rant a little bit, and I looked up and the audience was laughing. And I don't think they expected to laugh at a mental health talk. But sometimes, I had to explain to the audience, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. That's where I am in my life. And I prefer laughter. I really do. I will cry when I think about my brothers, but I really do prefer laughter and thinking about the good times. So then I said, all right, maybe I got to lighten this thing up a little bit. So it's now the talks I do, and I've done a couple around here, USC. I went to Elon, Furman, Southern Wesleyan. I got invited to Cornell University up in New York. They flew me up there.
Wow.
1,000 kids showed up. And I got this thing going where the first couple slides are rough. I have to relive what I went through, and they are rough. I have some pictures of my brothers, and I tell the kids what I went through, and one of them was while I was in college, so it really connects. And then I get to the point where I start talking about, and here's what you can do. And then I start getting in my groove, talking about warning signs, get your radar up, help each other out. I go over some of the psychological services available to the students and that are out there in the community as well, like the 800-273 talk line. I'll throw that in there. And then I wrap it up with like a little motivational message at the end. Again, talking about the sobriety piece and all that, which is really a big hit on college campuses.
Right.
Don't drink, kids. Yeah, shut up, Grandpa. But they need to hear it.
Yeah.
And I got a really nice letter from a student at Cornell. I'm always looking for that one. And she said I had a nerve, so I made a connection. It was nice to hear. So that's what I've been doing. I have a website. It's my name, DennisGillen.com. I'm revamping it right now.
Okay.
And it will take you to my Facebook page right now, but I'm coming back. So my name, DennisGillen.com, and you can just contact me. And if you have a venue, I've done some Rotary clubs.
Okay.
I've done some churches. I'm going to transitions down in Columbia here on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
I've done any group that'll listen. I'll do it. Someone needs to listen. Someone needs to hear it.
You're absolutely right. One thing that I want to, from the bottom of my heart, commend you on, Dennis, is you give talks on how we can prevent suicide. But I think you negate the fact that you stand before all those people showing what a survivor looks like. Because it could have been so easy for you to say, well, I'm going to give up. Or I don't want to be without my brothers. Or what's left for me. So you absolutely cannot not own that part. You are speaking to the families of people who lost a loved one, and they're wondering how they're going to go on, and they're wondering, why. And they want to take on that ownership and that blame and say, well, why would they leave me like this? So you're showing a person that not only wants to stop this epidemic, but you're saying, this is what forgiveness looks like. I've forgiven them from the standpoint of me being upset. I have forgiven myself for the time I didn't call Matthew back. And I'm moving forward and trying to help other people not feel how I felt. But the fact of the matter is that I felt that way, but I've allowed myself to heal too. And I think that's absolutely wonderful and courageous. And me being a mental health professional, I thank you for that. We need more people who are like you in that regard.
I appreciate the compliment. It is not about me. I really do. I do. That's what that young lady said in the letter. She said, thank you for standing up there and being sober. I didn't feel so brave at the time.
Yeah.
But some of the best conversations occur after the talk.
Yeah.
I come down off the stage, and that's when the people come up one by one. Hey, you don't know this about me, but, and all of a sudden people need to know, and the audience listening to the Truth Moment needs to know this, you're not on an island.
Yeah.
Often we think we're the only ones being impacted by this. And all of a sudden, when I had my coming out party of sorts and said, hey, this is what happened in my life, people have come out of the woodwork with similar circumstances. And I wish nobody would, but it just happens. Life will come at you and knock you down every now and then. But you have to get back up. Yeah. That's the key. And it's been really rewarding. Two things that blow me away about these talks. One, the numbers of the students and the audience that shows up. I didn't think when I embarked on a mental health suicide prevention talking tour that anybody would show up, but it's a topic that needs to be addressed. I don't know why our whole entire country seems stressed out at the moment. We all need to chill a little bit. We're only on this planet, 70, 80 years, good ones. And the reaction afterwards has been phenomenal. In fact, at Elon University, they took us back and they had a counselor, a mental health professional, myself, and someone from student affairs, and we had a debrief session. And some of the really good conversation came out after the talk. So I appreciate what you do. So I'm throwing it back over to you mental health professionals.
Thank you.
Lobbing it back.
Truth Moment audience, like I mentioned to him before, I'm absolutely thankful for him coming on. And if only one person watches this episode and can relate to it, maybe you've lost someone, maybe someone has attempted, or maybe you yourself feel that suicide is the way out for you. If nothing that Dennis said to you resonated, then you need to check your pulse, because this man, like I said, he's taken on this mission And I'm thankful for him for this mission. He helps make my job easier. If you're listening to him and you can identify with some of the things that he's saying, you're making my job easier for the simple fact that you can come to me and you can speak about the things that are bothering you because of his advocating for therapy and mental health. Without further ado, I'm going to close this out, but I'm going to allow Dennis to say some of the warning signs that he's seen. And with that, as he closes us out, I'm Tiara Pritchett. This is Dennis Gillen, and that's our truth. What's yours? Dennis, what are some of the warning signs?
Sure. If you look at the warning signs for suicide prevention, just have your radar up. You'll know when something's off. If someone starts withdrawing, maybe lashing out, maybe excessive use of drugs and alcohol, you'll just know that something's off. And here's one good tip I want to give you. Don't assume somebody else will catch it. I'm going to tell you right now, assume you're the only one that noticed and step in before they step out. That's what I would do. Just have your radar up. You'll know. You'll just know when something's off. If one of your friends was really into painting and all of a sudden they don't paint anymore, and there's a loss of interest, they start giving away prized possessions, they start talking about being worthless or giving up hope, you will know. But I really need you to know you're the only person that knows. Make a difference. Step in.
So here we are on a suicide walk, raising money, raising awareness, trying to break the silence. I just got to stand back there and watch the microphone get passed around and listen to these names, and I know I'm not alone. I'm not alone anymore. That's ginormous to me. We're not alone. We need each other. And ever since I've had my little coming out party, people have grabbed me in church, they grabbed me in the supermarket. Everyone has a story to tell, but we don't tell it. It's time to break the silence. It's time. It's been a wonderful healing for me, my family, my mom's here. It's been wonderful. And I look forward to next year when someone else is up there getting the plaque from Helen Pridgeon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.